I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 6 o'clock. Would anybody like to start us on the invocation? Mark?
Let's bow. Father, we thank you for today, and we thank you for another opportunity for life, and we thank you for this time together as a community and discuss the affairs of Los Fresnos. And we thank you for the folks that serve our community and volunteer their time and efforts, and appreciate their input with all that they have to do in their world. And we just thank you and ask you to bless them and their families. And we just thank you for our community and the tremendous community that we have. And we just pray that we will always be mindful uh, of the wonderful place we have to live and work. Uh, Bless us always in Christ's name, amen.
Okay, public hearing to receive comments from the public concerning the rezoning of 4.13 acres, more or less, out of the south one-third of Survey 45 and Subdivision F, Share 19 of the Espiritu Santo Grant from C2 Highway Commercial District to R1 Single Family District. Do you have any public comments on that? Hi, nice to meet you. Why don't you step up to so we can hear you a little better on the microphone?
My name is Steve Gano, and I represent the developer, and this is relating to our 23-acre residential subdivision we're going to put across the street. And this rezoning request simply deals with the front two lots in that subdivision, and it's adjusting where the commercial lot depth is, and it makes it conform to what I believe is the overall depth of those commercial lots along Highway 100. And other than that, I'm just here to answer any questions.
Any questions? Do I get a motion? We need a motion? No motion, okay. Any visitor remarks today, Jackie? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end the public hearing at 6:03. Consent agenda. All matters listed are considered to be routine by the city. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 consent agenda items today. Do anybody have any questions, comments into any of the consent agenda items?
I move that we accept the consent agenda, all 12 items as stated.
I second.
Motion carries. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose do as well. Motion does carry. Consent agenda items 1 through 12. Moving on to action items. Action item number 1, consideration and action to accept the petition requesting annexation by landowners for Feather Ridge Phase 4, a 12.145 acre tract of land out of Tract 45, Subdivision F of Paderes Tract Subdivision in Share 19, Espiritu Santo Grant, Cameron County, Texas, said 12.145 acre tract, also being out of a certain 747.1 acre tract of land and set a date and time for a public hearing. Any comments or questions in regards to action item number 1?
I move that we accept the petition as stated.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose do as well. Motion carries. Action item number 2, consideration and action to approve adding streetlights along Henderson Road. Do we have any questions or comments in regards to action item number 2?
Were these in the original, these streetlights, were they in the original, contract when first set up, or are they additional?
No, sir, it's separate since it's from AEP, and we'll pull the funds from our street fund to cover this.
So this is gonna be added to the final cost?
Not really, oh, I'm sorry, not really, it's really a separate from the road construction. We don't need, plan or specs or anything, for the road project with streetlights. AEP handles all of that. And you see my comments about the price, but, it is what it is, I guess.
And they're gonna light the whole Henderson Road or?
Yes, sir. It goes from 1847 all the way to 1575. And so it'll brighten up. And of course, we especially wanted the Resaca crossings.
And we're gonna pick up the electricity bill as well?
Yes.
How much do
AEP
you
does
estimate
that.
that's gonna be per year?
Excuse me?
How much do you estimate that's gonna be per year?
13 additional lights. I can't remember the monthly charge, but it's a monthly charge like we do the other probably 400 street lights that we have. I can get that information. I didn't specifically look at what that monthly charge is, but it's the same that we pay for all of our street lights.
And who made the recommendation to add streetlights?
I couldn't hear you, sir.
Who made the recommendations to add the streetlights?
When we were back 2 or 3 years ago, one of the complaints was is there was no lighting on the Resaca crossings either, and asked us to do that. And if you'll remember during the planning stages of Henderson Road project, the engineer asked the council if they wanted that as part of the project. And we said no, because they would be very expensive, and then they would be maintained. We would have to have a electrical meter at each of the Resaca crossings. And then we would have to have maintain our own street lights. And we don't have any street lights that we maintain in the city. So the council then agreed to do it with AEP like we've done all of our other street lights. And the reason why it was just brought up is because we just never have filled in that area.
So if we want to add any streetlights to any other part of the city, what, the city has to recommend it, or how are we gonna do that? Because there's some areas in the city that are not well lit, and I've heard complaints from citizens. They say we need additional lighting in some of the areas of town.
I'll be,
But let's just stick to the subject, but we can address that later. I'm sorry.
I'll be glad to look at any place that people recommend. If you'll recall, as we've annexed different areas, we've added the street lights. And our goal is to every street to have it on the in the old part of town and at each corner intersection. And so every part of the city has that. Some of the streets that are the new ones, like Quatas would be, although the residential area is not a problem, but Village East and all of these new ones, they're put in when the developer puts them in. Henderson Road, if you'll remember, where the houses are past the railroad tracks, there are already lights there. There was never any on the both Resaca crossings. Between the two Resaca crossings, there's also lights that have been there for years. We annexed from 1847 to the first house here 3 or 4 years ago and probably should have put lights up for those folks back in that day, but we just never did.
But that's kind of what I'm talking about, some of the older sections of town that say they need lighting, but
They should have them, but I would be glad to look and sure, more lights better.
yeah, we can address that later. I apologize.
And I know that's going to definitely make it safer, especially for people walking in the evenings on the street. So do I get any motions, any other questions, or anybody want to make a motion? Can you press a button? I'm sorry about that. We can't hear.
I move we accept the lighting on Henderson Road as proposed on the agenda.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Action item number 2. Moving on to action item number 3, consideration and action to approve change order number 6 for the Henderson Road Resaca Crossing Project. Do I got any questions or comments in regards to action item number 3?
Some comments, I guess. We're still not gonna allow fishing off the Resacas or off the bridges now, are we? If we add grass, and I know those areas next to the water are gonna be nice and pretty. Is that going to invite fisher people? And now they, they're off, the traffic is not gonna be too much of a hindrance. The parking will be, but I don't know.
That is all up to the council. We plan to install the no fishing signs back as construction is complete. The grass is more to hold so that we don't get dirt washing off. If we don't get something on it quick, well then our maintenance guys will have a problem one day when they are mowing, when weeds grow up, which they will one day. There could be ruts, and so it's just trying to not have any erosion in the meantime.
And the purpose for the no fishing sign, to my understanding, is because the road was not wide enough, so it was dangerous for people to stand there. And that was the whole purpose of the fishing signs, correct?
Correct. And the council, when this was all being discussed both the pros and cons of fishing. There was some good comments brought up that to remain the same. There were some good comments that offers a place that's now safe for people to go and fish. And the council then said, we will leave it the way it is, which is why we'll put the signs back up. And if someone wants to address it, they can address it at that time. After you see it, when you see how it's going to be on paper is one thing, but when you visually see, you can know if it's safe or it's not, or if it's something the council even wants to consider.
And now that there's enough space, possibly maybe a bench out there for locals to maybe sit out there and watch the sunset would be a nice thing. And maybe it's something to get consensus about the people that live on that street to see what they would think about that. But any more comments or questions in regards to action item number 3?
I don't have a problem with having no fishing sign, but kind of a shame because before all that development, we used to do a lot of fishing in those Resaca. Unfortunately, development comes along and takes some of the fun away.
But there's enough space now.
It's progress.
There's enough space now to fish. It's just a matter of.
I know, but like I say, before there wasn't space either, and people still fished up there. But I understand.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Are we talking about the grass seeds, seeding the
Yeah, that's correct, right, Mark? It's seeds of grass to, some grass out there?
Right, hydro mulch, it's a spray that will spray, make it immediately green um, and then in time, over a few months, the, Bermuda seed will grow. But, they do the hydro mulch so that it holds the soil in place now, at the very beginning.
I have a concern. I was out there looking at it and, I'm afraid when we have a big rain, we're gonna lose a lot of the topsoil, and I'm afraid that our $16,000 worth of grass is gonna end up in the Resaca. And I think we need to wait and see how everything holds up with the drainage on that. That's just my concern. I'm not an engineer, I didn't design it, but, I am concerned that we're gonna lose a lot of the soil there.
I understand, and, if Vicente, maybe could you address that? He is the engineer on the project. I do know that if we do not put seed, you will lose soil. It doesn't matter if it's, I know there's a question about, one particular area where it drains. Even without that, if that was to your satisfaction already, um, there would be soil erosion on anything that does not have grass. So the idea is for the grass to be there so that it prevents soil erosion. So, keep that in mind. Vicente can, address that.
Oh, okay, let me make another comment. As long as we have him here, as long as he assures us and on record that, we're not gonna have a rain wash out all the soil and that grass away, I will go along with it, but I want assurance. If it washes away, somebody's gonna pay for it beside the city to put it back.
Good evening, I'm Vicente Mendez with Ambiotech Civil Engineering. I'm the project engineer. The purpose of adding the hydro mulcher is to prevent erosion. Once the grass grows and it's there, the rain will not wash the grass away because those roots will be embedded. And that's the reason that we're trying to hydro mulch it, to prevent the erosion and prevent the dirt from going into the resaca. So if approved tonight, then the contractor can add the hydro mulch, which is basically, like Mr. Milam said, it's pretty much the seed. And it will require watering and to make sure that the seeds adhere and start growing. And once you start getting grass, then the grass will hold that dirt in place. If we get a big rain per se this week, God forbid, then yes, we would have some of that dirt wash away because there's nothing to hold it back.
What was your name again, sir?
Vicente Mendez with Ambiotech Civil Engineering.
Do you have any idea how long it will take before we have some grass growing on there?
It will take a good, probably 30 to 45 days. Hydro mulch requires a lot more water than regular sod. So it will require constant watering.
I haven't been by that area to see how small or how big of an area it is that we're talking about. But
You're talking about, maybe 6 to 7 foot, the length of the resaca on both sides, maybe more than 6 or 7 feet.
because I've seen, when a home gets built and they want a quick lawn in front or in the back, buy those
The sod, yeah, the grass.
already made grass and
Yes, sir.
they just lay it on there, and that certainly keeps.
That is an option that hydro mulching was cheaper, but it is an option to get a price from the contractor for actual grass and plant the typical 1-by-1 strips of grass and plant them on there. If you all wish, we can do that and and come back with a proposal for that.
Because we can have some instant grass.
Yes, sir.
And at the same time, it'll keep the dirt from
Yes.
eroding.
You mentioned that the hydro mulch would take a lot of watering. Who would be watering the mulch once it's down?
Initially, the contractor will, and then at some point it belongs, it becomes a responsibility of the city. Right,
And that's included in the price that's stated here, correct?
yes, sir.
So using actual squares of grass would be a lot more expensive than what we're paying now on this particular place.
It will be more expensive, not necessarily a lot more expensive, but I can get you a price, and I can get it over to Mr. Milam probably by tomorrow.
The thing about it is, what kind of rainfall amount would cause that kind of erosion damage? I mean, I see pretty much every construction site, like, these overpasses. You have a big rain, there's erosion. But after a while, you know, when the grass grows, it takes care of itself. But, are we anticipating any heavy rains anytime soon? I mean, let's give it time. I mean,
Not that I'm aware of, but obviously.
there's a lot of drainage that occurs from all sides of that Resaca, and
Yes,
I mean, it would have to be a lot of rain falling or rushing through one small area to cause a lot of erosion damage.
we're simply trying to do preventive maintenance. And so we, anticipating that, you know, we thought we'd bring that forward to you all and see what how you feel about it and what you want to do. I mean, it is your option. We don't have to hydro mulch it or sod it either. I mean, we can leave it like that. I mean,
But if there is some erosion damage, it can be fixed, right? It wouldn't be a problem.
Yes, sir. The only problem is once the grass grows, then you have to come back and fill in, when you say that grass grows and then it's all okay, but it's not, but you have to go back and fill in those places that have eroded prior to the grass growing. And that's what we're trying to prevent, is not go back and re-spread dirt and level it, which there could be, I don't know how to explain it to you. If you've seen a rain and water going over that surface, it'll make trenches and that's what we're trying to prevent.
But anytime you do any kind of project, that's always a possibility.
yeah,
Hurricane season just around the corner, so I mean, it definitely is a possibility.
yes, sir. That's correct.
Any other questions or comments or?
Just one point that may help you all make a better, make your decision. If you look at the change order, actually, the hydro mulch right now is not costing you any extra, because we do have an item which we're deducting a 3-foot high chain link fence that was originally in the plans. So it kind of almost a wash. You actually have like a $10 credit if you look at the change order. So it's not costing the city any additional cost.
So do you recommend that?
Just FYI. Do I recommend the hydro mulch?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I do. Especially because it will not cost you any additional increase in the project.
Okay, the professionals recommend it.
Any last comments or anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the change order number 6 to include the hydro mulch.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those who oppose do the same.
Aye.
And motion carries. Action item number 3. Moving on to action item number 4. Discussion on delays and completion date for the Henderson Road Resaca Crossing Project. Mark, you have any comments on regard to that?
This was brought up last time, and then I know you wanted to ask about the drainage a little bit on the, I guess on the east crossing, the west side of the northwest side of the east crossing, I think, is the biggest concern. And so wanted to address that. And then delays, you've seen, I pretty well lined out all of the days that have been requested. They probably won't complete, even with these new days because of the freeze and because of the shortage of limestone. But they'll be close. Do you have a date, Leo, that end of May? So that's for the west side. The east side, besides some cleanup items, and then the hydro mulch is pretty well complete. And so I'll just let y'all, and Vicente probably be the one to answer on the drainage, because I know that's a concern, that one area.
I wanted to start off with just a question that I had on that drainage flow. One of the things I noted when I went out there and visited the location, I noticed that from the road down to Henderson Road, it kind of steeps down, so the rain will trickle downward. I'm concerned that the water will flow across the street, causing maybe a flood, and there's really not an exit of water into the Resaca on that side. I know that there is a path that was made to go a certain direction. So my question is, if we do have rain going down that road that's there, and it's going downward, how is it going to make that turn and go down the path that you want it to go? I'm just curious.
The road has a crown now that should divert that water towards the concrete swell that was there. What we can do to kind of double check it for ease of what you just said, we can have the contractor bring a water truck, and I can have them kind of get up on the upper end of that street, that side street, and dump it on there so we can actually see a visual of what it's doing. But that was the reason that we put a crown in the street to help alleviate that. That's been a concern from us as well, because the side street is pretty high, right?
It's high, and so is the bridge. The bridge goes upward, so it's kind of like it's got to flow down and then
Correct.
up and then to an angle.
Yes.
And I was just thinking that, I'm not sure if any other members here wanted to make a comment or a question about that.
On the south side of the road, it has been graded such that if there would be some water that would jump the crown, it should find its way along the slope and over towards the Resaca side on the south side. I will go out. We still have to do the final inspection on that site, even though it's been open already to the public, but part of the project is to go out there, do a final walkthrough, excuse me, and then point out whatever comments may need to be addressed to the contractor. So I will make it a point to make sure that I take a good look at that, what you just said.
Was this crown added with the asphalt, or was it built in with the caliche and everything, and then just the asphalt kind of helped it out? And the reason why I'm asking is that we had a 1/4-inch rain out there, and I sent Mark some pictures, and it was just a 1/4-inch rain, and that water didn't follow the path that it was supposed to. It crossed the street onto the south side and then jumped the curb onto Linan's property and drained out that little corner.
Keep in mind, I did see those pictures, by the way, Mr. Milam forwarded to us. Keep in mind that when those pictures were taken and when that rain occurred, the pavement had not been done yet. So between the top of the limestone and where your gutter is, there was like a 2-inch difference. So obviously that's where the water was held. I mean, just to be fair to the situation, right? So because you had a depression at that point, the water had nowhere to go, but not necessarily means that all of that water came in from that side street. So that's why I'm suggesting that the thing to do is to test it. I can have the contractor go out there with a water truck, and we can visually see what it's doing. We did go out there as soon as the rain stopped, I think the day after, because Mark sent me those pictures and we did go out there to take a look. But again, in all fairness to the situation and to the contractor at the time, the asphalt was not laid yet, so there was a depression on the, a 2-inch gap on the street.
I don't have any qualms with the contractor. It's all engineering.
Yeah.
And all the contractor does is follow the engineering plan.
Sure.
So, you know, if we have any qualms or any concerns, it's gonna be with the engineering firm and not contractor, unless the contractor obviously missed the mark on laying that asphalt down.
The only other question that I have in regards to that is, as the water trickles down and takes that little turn to go out, there's a house right there next to where that chain link fence was supposed to go.
Yes, sir.
What are the possibility of the water flowing into his house and flooding his area? Or, I mean, is the water gonna go in
We
there?
we put a retaining wall along there and we put a curb along the edge of the concrete. And right there where it discharges into the Resaca, we did the same thing as well to prevent that. We did anticipate that when we were out there, so we took that into consideration.
All right, sounds good.
Couple of months back, we approved a change order or an add-on for that retaining wall on the Gomez fence line. We also approved monies for the digging of a trench, and they were gonna lay sewer pipe, or not sewer pipe, but culverts to a certain point, about halfway up the fence, and then it was supposed to make a turn to the left and empty out into the Resaca.
Yes.
I saw the contractor digging, and they had the pipes there. They were digging and they were gonna lay the pipe down. Then it quit. They didn't do it. Then they laid that 4-inch gutter down in there. We'll have to wait for that first rain, big rain, to see if that little gutter is gonna contain that water. But my concern here is, if we didn't follow through with that change order, where did that money go to?
Anything that gets approved by you all that does not get constructed comes back to the city. At the end of the project, when we do the walkthrough and we address whatever items are pending, the other thing that we do also as well is anything that has not been constructed for whatever reason, maybe because it wasn't necessary after all, or there was a shortage of, there was a certain amount of quantity that wasn't necessary to be used. We do a change order of, what do you call it? For the additions and deductions of all the items that were bidded. And so whatever wasn't used, goes back to the city.
Because that was one of the things that I was very confused on. And when I met with y'all out there, because it was gonna go to about that light pole about halfway, and then it was gonna have a grate and go underground. The reason why that couldn't happen is because from the time the plans were done, till now, Cameron County Irrigation District number 6 has decided to change their water level, their normal water level, from 21 to 24. And so when they did that, the outlet that goes into the Resaca would no longer make to where it would drain properly, is what I was explained. And so that was something that it was a change of Water District 6 decided to hold more water in that Resaca than what they had prior. So I wasn't aware of all that. And so that's why above surface drain is what they turn to instead of underneath, because if that Wasaka's too high, well, then that water will start backing up there and it won't offer any relief. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that made a difference to me in the reason why. Don't like it too much, but it still at least made sense as to why.
Well, it makes sense as to why, but the fix doesn't make sense. And like I said, we have to wait for that first, 2-inch rain to come through, to prove one or the other wrong, or to prove both of us right, either way you want to look at it. But, that's yet to be, to be seen. Another question that I had, go ahead.
Can I, before that, just so we get off, because you'll go to something else and we'll forget, if you'll recall, the original design was for us to get the 10 feet, from the neighbor there. And the neighbor did not want to sell that where the land is. They did where the Resaca was. And so, it doesn't help us today, but in the future, if that road gets widened, then we will have to, if people don't want to sell 10 feet along there, the city will have to do what they call, eminent domain and take the 10 feet. The council did not want to do that whenever we were buying those properties, and said that we will try to make the drainage work in that small area. If you had another 10 feet there, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion at all. So kind of keep that in mind. It did have an effect. I think we can get it to drain, either the way it is or some kind of modification, but keep that in mind as we go forward. We made a decision not to take that 10 feet because those people really didn't want to get rid of it. And I understand them not wanting to. I'm not criticizing them at all. I agree with them. I would have said the same thing probably.
Well, I think after, how much frontage did you end up purchasing from that family?
Only in the water, in the land.
Okay.
And
And
it would
picked
have
up-
done 10 feet over.
And you picked up 10 feet from, Linan?
Yes, sir.
So that fence should be the demarcation for,
He had already put his, there was also a 10-foot easement there. And so his fence was already off of that 10 feet that we purchased. So it made it real attractive to him because he wasn't really losing any land that he was living in his backyard because the fence was already there. And it had a 10-foot utility easement that he already couldn't do anything. So that's why his fence is where it is. So the fence is the 80 foot. And the other question became is, why did we keep the road where it is? We just, with discussion with the council and the engineer and actually a bunch of the neighbors, if you'll recall, to center the street in the 80 foot, what 80 foot right of way would be in the future. And that's why it's got a little curve there, and there'll be one in the other side. And it bows as it goes there. And for some reason, when they put the original road, it wasn't centered in the 60-foot right of way. We don't know why they did it that way, because you can see back down, it straightens up. But for there, they did not center it. And we discussed that several times and said, no, let's make it right so that people won't criticize us, 5 years from now when that road's widened to the 80 foot and make it wider. And they'll say, well, why didn't they put the road in the middle whenever they did this just a few years ago? So that was the decision and the discussion, quite lengthy, between council, the residents, and engineer at that time.
if you look at it from the just common sense, looking at the road, it doesn't look like you used any property to the south side, but you moved everything to the north side and try to squeeze everything over there on the north side versus using some of the south side to straighten that road out.
The road centered, where it is on the crossing, it's centered in the 80-foot right of way.
Well, it may be centered, but it doesn't look pretty when you're looking at two bows. But anyway, that's taken away from the deal. My other comment on this as to why the delays and stuff, when the original the original plans were set up as to this, that center pipe that was gonna go across there at a certain depth, at a certain place, did the water district submit their preliminary criteria as to how deep, how wide, size pipe, whatever, was gonna be needed for that pipe?
I'll start and then Vicente can add to it. Way back whenever under design, Cameron County Irrigation District 6 was given plans and to show them what the plans look like. And they did not have a problem with it, did not say that there was any concern with anything at that time. We had a pre-construction meeting very early January, and that's whenever the general manager and the engineer said that they didn't like something on it. So from January, the 1st of January to, I think it was late February, we held the contractor back from starting with giving the notice to proceed because Water District 6 wanted to look at it again. They came back with some minor adjustments, but no big changes. Between the end of February and about May is whenever the big change, and then they had to go to their board, and we came back with change order, and then what they ended up paying for what their changes were. And so we feel like, and I'll let Vicente address that they knew and they were just changing as time went on.
So back to my question, did they submit something in writing so that his engineering firm then could draw up the plans so that Mr. Contractor over there could start digging across that roadway and put in that pipe? Because I know he was halfway through and then they stopped him. And then it sat there for a couple of months. I guess letting the minds get together. So did you have something in writing from the water district prior to so that you could plan properly, or
Yes,
this is just a discussion with nothing written?
they did submit a letter to us stating the requirements, but as construction was going on, they sent their guys out there to take elevations, and they made some changes regarding the elevation of the water, so that they wanted the water higher than what they anticipated, and so that caused a delay for the project. I think it was like an extra 4 inches or 6 inches removed in it. You had already set the. Yeah, I mean, I remember that even after that, they went out there and they told us that no, that they wanted to set a new elevation on the waters.
So that's an added expense for them because they had to redig the pipe back out and relay it. It's on the water district. City should not be liable since you had something in writing that said, this is where we want it at this height, this depth, and that's what you were proceeding by.
And I believe that was at the time that Mark went to their board and they agreed to pay a certain portion. I don't remember what that was.
Yes, sir. They got together and determined that it was, what their cost that was put on the contractor that was no fault of the cities or our engineer was 26,544.70. And that was, it's on packet page 80 under change order 5. And that's whenever their board agreed to pay that 26,544.70 because they changed what they wanted instead of, so they understood that they were responsible for financially for it as well.
I mean, interrupt, what do we have to gain from all of this? I mean, this is a project that's been going on for years. The city has bent over backwards to get this project taken care of, and yet you're still complaining. I don't
I'm
understand why.
complaining about the mismanagement.
It is not
and the
being mismanaged,
misengineering
sir.
out
We
there.
have professionals working on this. I
It
don't
doesn't
know.
matter.
I think
Professionals
you
make
have too much
mistakes.
time on your hand. If you're out
Professionals
there
make
looking at
mistakes.
pipes and why don't you just do it on your own and come and look to see if there's paper signed or not signed and quit
I've been
wasting
doing it
our
on my
time.
own. I've been
The thing
working with
about
Mark.
it is that is there water in the hole because of the drainage? Is there?
It hasn't rained yet.
It has rained. Is there
Quarter
water in the
inch rain so
No.
far.
And the project isn't finished yet either, just like they explained. And for you to think that they're gonna do something in a shoddy way that's not gonna work out is something else, because we're trying to serve less than 1% of the community in that area. The other 99% has to pay for it, yet you're still here whining, even though the city has bent over backwards to make this thing right.
Then I should get on my knees and thank you, sir, for
Sure.
bending, for giving us this project.
Well, the
No,
thing about it is
And, but
that
it's on your dime.
I don't want to sit through this because I don't see any point in it.
There's the door. You can leave at any time. We have a
We
quorum.
need some order, we need some order in
I'm
this
not
meeting
gonna
right now.
leave because
Appreciate
you're
y'all's
telling me
concern.
to.
You can take that
It's
outside.
just that I don't see any point in it. We're wasting everybody's time.
You're not wasting my time.
Very
You're
much
the
for
only
answering those
one.
questions. Yeah, sorry about that, gentlemen, but we need to put the meeting in order. Do we have any motions on action item number 4 or
It's
last,
not an action item.
sorry,
It's just
action item
griping.
for discussion, item number 4? Have it made a motion on that?
I have a concern,
Okay,
and I've been listening patiently, and I'd like to remind the people that, when I got elected, the project had sat there for some 3 years when the money was borrowed, and nobody moved a finger. So if we could sit there 3 years and do nothing, we shouldn't complain about doing something and people concerned.
The thing is that the same citizens are the one that held it in that property. Mark took forever to get the easements, to get that property. That didn't help. That took forever to do. And then for you to turn around and blame the city for it? Come on. You people weren't even here when that project was started, so you don't know what happened.
I was there when it got moved and started going.
at
I
the end
just
of the day,
have a
as
concern.
council people, we have the responsibility of asking questions, and that's good that we're asking questions, and I appreciate our council members asking these kind of
Okay.
questions.
Concerns on this project. If you're traveling from this high school and you're going west on Henderson Road and you cross the Resaca, then the street that goes around is what, Camino? What is the street that goes, makes all along the Resaca, Mark? What is that street? It's right by,
Everybody calls it Cuates, but it's North Cuates, but it's actually Cuates Camino, North Cuates Camino.
okay, my concern is, I go into the nature park and I don't know who the engineering was on that job, but they should have been fired. The road is too narrow. They put it sharp corners like you do on a house. So when cars are turning in, they almost have to stop if there's a car exiting. If a bus comes in there, it's impossible for a bus to go into the nature park if there's a car exiting. Now, I'm afraid that on that Camino road, we're gonna have the same trouble. A bus is gonna come and, we need to make sure that there's a, rounded, just like we did at the post office, that make it easy for the buses to turn without having to stop in the middle of the road. Do you understand what I'm talking about, Mark?
We didn't make the road any narrower than it was before, sir.
It's not the narrower, it's making the entry or exit rounded off so it's easy for the bigger vehicles to enter into the road. Like you did at the post office.
The corner is too sharp, I guess is what you were saying.
Exactly, the corner street.
Then that will give a problem to the drainage. You can't take off that corner because of the way the drainage is what we've just been talking about.
I disagree, Mark. I think you can, but, that's my concern.
You want to look at that? For us?
Any further discussion and delays of completion date of the Henderson Road Resaca Crossing Project?
I move that we accept the conversation, even though it did bore somebody. That we accept the conversations and explanations by Mr. Mylum and Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, there's no motion, but thank you very much with that. So we got one last item on the action item to move on to. Consideration and action to authorize the city manager to dispose of surplus items. And as you know, there's an attachment on there of the particular items that are up for discussion. Is there any questions in regards to action item number 5?
I was under the understanding that the city lights that were removed were going to be put up for auction. Is that still gonna happen, or dispose means they're gonna be given away?
It says on there, there's an action item for an auction, and they're going to give to the highest bid. And if not, then they can dispose of them a different way. I believe it's what it said on the comments.
Yes, sir, it's in your notes. That we won't auction, we put it up for a bid. We don't do an auction. We ask people to submit a bid for those items, and then we take the highest one.
Okay, so the items that you're listed on there is to bid, not to give them away without the bid. It's just for you to put them on a bid status.
He says all the items listed are to be put on a bid, all the items.
Yes.
And it says here, if there's not an item, then that doesn't get a bid, then we scrap it for value.
I have a question. People have been asking me about a Harley Davidson motorcycle that, what happened to that motorcycle?
It was a gift many years ago from South Padre Island after they finished. And that one was in the Hurricane Dolly, and should have got rid of it back in those days, but never have. For a few years, we had a motorcycle patrol on those.
I never saw them patrolling.
Been a while and didn't last. It's a very unique type of service, and it kind of works on the island because of where they are, but it doesn't work as well here.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the surplus item sale as presented by our city manager.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Action item number 5. Moving on to acknowledgement of city managers' reports. Any questions about any of the reports? Anybody want to make a motion to acknowledge the city manager reports?
I so move.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to acknowledge of the city manager's reports. Acknowledgement of department head reports. Any questions, comments? Anybody like to make a motion?
I so move.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries to acknowledge of the department head reports. Time is 6:56. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.